Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about a few things that we've talked about in the past, especially the last few weeks, because it's so important. I don't want to get off of it because I know the importance of it, and when I believe everybody else does, they'll see the benefit in their own game. The It's the right wrist, the right arm, the right elbow, and the functions of what the right arm can do, basically, and also the functions of what the right wrist can do. And if you're left-handed, it basically be your left. So it's your back arm essentially. Where people get lost is they don't really, because traditional golf always says to get the toe up, in the backswing and so forth in their takeaway, the toe of the golf club up into the backswing, and when you do that, the forearm has to roll. When the forearm rolls, that means you have to roll it back. That starts a problem. The elbow can fold, which causes another problem. It's going to open it even more. And then you have also the wrist and cock vertically, which usually those three things go together. Usually, if you roll the right forearm, you fold the right elbow, you're going to cock the right wrist. I mean, that's just a norm. Now, you can recover out of that where you turn the right wrist back down, the right forearm back on plane, and you get the swing direction correct with the right arm. The right arm has really essentially four functions. We'll go over those really quickly. The last video that I made, I would highly suggest everybody watch that on a daily basis if you're serious about your swing and your game. It covers everything. I don't need to make another one. It has everything covered with inside that video. But with that, the right arm has essentially four functions. It can rotate, so it can rotate, and both arms can do this. It can rotate open and it can rotate closed this way. It can move in any direction it wants to move in. I mean, that arm can move like this back arm. The plane of the arm would be right here, but it can move out here. It can move out here. It can move this way. It can move that way. It can move anywhere it wants to move because it's attached to the shoulder. It's the ball socket joint. So it can go anywhere it wants to go. So it has swing direction to it. It also can fold and extend at the elbow. So if I take a look, hopefully we got a face on. See if we get, every hardly. Yeah, well, here's one. Was one. I mean, it doesn't matter which player. When you go back, it can fold. Both elbows, see, this one's extended and that one can be folding. So the elbows can extend and fold, and they can fold in a lot of different degrees. The more it folds, the more you're going to cock your wrist, etc. If you overextend it, the more the club's going to get locked up. So it can fold and extend. That's the back arm. And again, when I'm saying this, both can do this. These are basically the arm function, but I'll say the back arm function because that's the one you want to be focusing on. So it can fold and extend at the elbow. It has that. It has rotation. It has swing direction, and then it's the arc arm. So if I come back here, anywhere I go, this club, if you watch with any player, the club can't go back. If you look at a great player, they will circle the hands back this direction. And as they do that, and some people go, "Oh, that's over the top." No, it's not, because they have the right wrist bent, like I always say. So it's their arms are going back out in front, like you can see. The arms are back out in front from this circle, but they have the right wrist bent, and you can see the club face. Pretty easy to see. That thing is bent. So when they get down here, the arc changes to here. So if he kept going here, it would be linear, which we call linear, and he would just be off plane, hitting a big flip right, and you wouldn't even know who this player is. It's Davis Love, but nobody would care because it wouldn't be any good. But he turns that arc right at the ball. So we call it the arc arm. The back arm has the function of changing directions, and that goes back to swing direction, but we call it the arc arm because there's some things in there that it's still based on swing direction because it can change that. It's the exact same thing. So you can essentially say three. We call it arc arm because it does change. So it's kind of weird, but you just have to bear with me on that. So you could either say, okay, well, it's just one thing, or when I say arc arm, because the arc arm, when I take this back arm here, and it comes through, it's circling around, and then it changes arcs down at the bottom. And that is definitely swing direction. So either way you look at that, 3 or 4, it has those are the major functions of both arms. Both arms can do it. One can rotate, they can change, the left arm can make swing direction, but the right arm's your dominant arm typically, or your back arm's your dominant arm, and that's the one you want to be in control of what you're trying to do. And that's the one I talk about all the time. So if you look at, I'm going to break this down. We had a player, if you can, Bob, thanks for sending your video in. I really appreciate you doing that. If you can send it in by YouTube in slow motion, that would even be better. We're going to take a peek at it. But when you look at Davis Love, go back here. I don't know if not quite far enough back to see the clip face. But if you look here, you'll see when the right wrist is bent correctly on the plane of the right arm, his forearms bent down towards the ball in this general area, okay? And if you look at the face here, you'll see the face. You can almost see the scoring lines on the face. You'll definitely be able to see it in Dustin Johnson's. If you looked at it, you could really see it. But if you look at the top, you'll definitely see that the scoring line. That means the right wrist is bending. It's a very good example. So when we go to look at another player, here's a player you can see already halfway back. You can't see any of the face. That means the right wrist is vertically wrist cocked. That he has to feel his right thumb. I'm going to try to make it where you understand it, go this direction. Because right now, really, his right thumb is going the opposite direction as that. It's going this direction, and it's cocking the club up, which is making this club wide open. I mean, that thing is standing. That thing's probably 50 degrees open. So, and he's not even I don't know that he's starting down yet or going back, but I can tell you either one. Yeah, he's going down, so that's even worse. So that means when you're coming down with that, see, even going back, what happens here is he thinks he's bending the right wrist. What he's doing is he's rolling the left arm. So he's rolling this arm. He thinks he's bending it. And then what happens is when he goes on up further, the elbow kind of folds. Here's that elbow fold. Because the left arm rotated, what happened was then all of a sudden you see what we call hanging club face. Now, that club face is hanging down. You can't see any part of the face. So that thing is wide open. Not enough right side rotation. There's all kinds of things you can go on to here. But in general, if I just said, well, okay, give me one thing, all right, don't mess with all this other stuff. That club, I'm telling you right now, that club is wide open and there's no chance. That is the weakest position you can strike from. The absolute weakest position you can strike from. That club needs to be, I need to be able, when I'm looking at it from this view right here, I need to be able to see that face. So 100%. At some point especially, and I'm going to show you where you have to see. I can see the face here. When I can see the scoring line. I can see the club face. When I go back here, we're going to go back and forth because that's the only way I can do it. So when I go back here, I can't see it. The club face is rotated backwards. I mean, that thing is like that's how I would hit a flop shot. And when I say this, you got to understand, I don't want to make anybody feel bad when they send a video in, because that is absolutely not what I'm trying to do. It may sound like that because I'm so passionate about what I do, but I can tell you I don't mean it that way. So I don't want you to be scared to send your videos in if it feels like I'm criticizing, but because it's always constructive and it helps the player. But I need to be able to see that club face, which I cannot see anything. It's going backwards. Now again, I'm just going to, so if I was to define that, just see the face. So we'll go back and forth where you can see this, and I can't see the face. So now we kind of got, now here's where, now you can have a club face that looks like this going in your backswing. You cannot have a club face. There has never been a player on the PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, any tour in the world that has had somebody that had this coming down. So that now it becomes more important. So we can say, okay, if he did have a hanging club face and its wrist is cocked and all this stuff, you won't ever see this. You'll never see anybody that has the club face where I can't see the scoring line right here. So the plane of the shaft is somewhat okay. So if you look at the plane of the shaft, I'm not drawing a straight line, but it's not all that bad. I mean, it's definitely fine. The club face is crushed, so that means the side of the shaft is angled backwards. So right here, he's in the weakest. We have strongest or weakest. he's in the absolute weakest position to strike from. His club has to rotate probably 30 degrees, and it has to rotate 30 degrees just to get back to square. But what happens when it's the weakest, when it's in the weakest position like this, when the shaft's backwards right here that we talk about, that's the section, that thing is pointing, it needs to be opposite of the way it's rotated. When it's backwards like this, then all of a sudden they're going to have to start using muscles and throwing the club head and casting it downward and outward, these directions, and then you're going to start seeing some other problems pop up. So you'll see that here. If his shaft was loaded correctly and his right wrist was loaded correctly, he wouldn't try to do that. It wouldn't make sense. The shaft would be under plane versus, or it'd be on plane or under versus over. But if I play this, you'll see you can see the club head is way over the baseline. But that's all just an effect. His body has to stop. I say this, we do a biomechanics school once a month, and it's usually about 16 hours. And I always tell everybody, your body only responds to what your shaft can do. It's not. This is not. A lot of people say, "Oh, you need to turn your hips more. You're not open enough." All that. He can't. If he was to open his hips more, he'd whiff. So his body is only responding to what his shaft is doing. So when your shaft is incorrect, that's why I always talk about this. When your shaft is incorrect, your body is not going to function like you see somebody on the tour. And it's not a body issue. I think his body can move just fine. I usually never, it's not, people's bodies don't move very well in general. I understand that, but I can tell you one thing for a fact. They don't have to if you have the shaft right. If you get the shaft right, that's what you strike the ball with. You don't have to have the body of Dustin Johnson to play scratch golf at your local club. You better have the shaft right, because that requires, we have a deal when we talk to juniors, we call, there's things that take talent and there's things that take no talent. No talent is understanding pre-swing fundamentals, grip, alignment, setup, ball position, posture. Those are no talent. Hitting a wedge shot from 10 yards to 50 yards requires no talent. That requires understanding and a lot of practice. What requires a lot of talent is when you have to hit it 300 yards in the air on the fly. That requires a lot, and it's straight. That requires talent. But these things that we're talking about with the right wrist and the right arm, the right elbow, their function, what they're designed to do, and the right side, they're not. So those are the things that strike a ball. And my point is, it's concentration and understanding. So we'll go back and forth. So if you look at, I'm going to leave this here. I can't change it. It's got the play button on it, but you can see where the club's relative. So that's what we call the baseline. He's on the baseline. So when we go back and we look at Davis Love's baseline, well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously Davis Love, but the reason why this is on the baseline is because of the shaft, not the body. His body, yeah, it's rotated, but I guarantee you, if that shaft, you can see the angle, even the angle we talk about here. Most people say toe up. That toe is not up. That toe is angled. Every player is angled when that club's coming through, just like this. So when you go back, if I bring this back, all this comes back to is, it comes back to essentially, you don't have to have it here, but after you come out of there, now you can really see that club head. You can see the face and the right wrist bend. The angle that Bob is on here is not way off. It's a little steep. It gets steeper as he goes down because the club face is back the opposite way. It's open. It's radically open because the wrists have caught. So that's really, the only way I can explain it. I mean, that it is what it is. And the way you get better at that is looking at your video. Let me just back this up and see if I can pop this in. You can see, I mean, even right, that cast and come across and everything like that, the body's moving fairly well, but the shaft isn't. The shaft's rotating like for a bunker shot or a flop shot. So you're going to have a really high ball flight. It's going to hit really off the toe of the club because the baseline, it's going to have to hit off the toe. So when I come through, body sinking, doing really good, shaft sideways, which is not good, and it's hitting right off the toe, and it's going to slide left of that, and it's going to hit a lot of pools. Going to be pretty high through. I mean, the ball flight would be fairly high, and so forth. So it could be, now if you trap it down and you pull it, it's going to be low. But if you flip it back to the target and hit it straight, you're going to have to lay the club face back with that angle of attack and hit it. It's going to be vertical. So, but that, again, it just goes back to what we always talk about. That's why I always talk. That's why every single webinar, I mean, literally, I talk about this because I don't want anybody to have this right here. When even out of the takeaway, doesn't look bad, but that left arm's rolling, and then the right arm cocks, the right arm folds, and then that you'll see that this all of a sudden now it bends. That right wrist is cocked. See, it's not flat. This right wrist is not flat. You'll see a cup in here. You'll see a nice little cup in here, and so it's not flat. If that right wrist was bent, it would be flat relative to the arm, and then that club face, would you be able to see the face? So it always goes back to that. You can see this right wrist right here is much, much flatter relative to the plane of the arm. So when you look, let me break this down so you can see where it changes, where the conversion's at. So when you're going, here's the baseline, here's exactly, I mean, literally what we teach. From right here, that wrist bends right on, he's not rolling this arm over. He's bending that right wrist on the plane, and when he does that, as it goes back, then you can see the face. You need to, I guarantee you, most amateurs, they need to be seen. Now, if you see the extreme, and it's got to be in, if you see the face is standing wide open, I mean, standing straight up, it's still better than seeing it hanging. Because if it's up like that, it's a stronger position. There's just no doubt about it. And that means that you're in the ballpark when you can see that face. So it's tricky, but it goes back to the exact same things. And that's why we do this every week, because that's what I'm afraid of, is that people don't, the ones that really get it, they have that down. They understand that right wrist and that right arm. When they get that and the right side, they start to move that together. They stripe it. I mean, they don't miss shots. It's just lasers. But when they roll that right forearm or left forearm, either one, cock that right wrist, or they fold the right arm too soon, then all of a sudden that face gets in a position where it's in the weakest, what we call the weakest position to strike from. And then what happens, your brain knows that. So then when it comes down on the downswing, it just comes straight across the ball, and club's really sloppy trying to rotate and flip and do a lot of different things. And it's just natural. I mean, it's not like it's because you're not athletic or anything like that. It's just because it's in the worst position to strike from. So we're here, that left arm rolls, the right arm, right there, that right arm's already rolled. Your wrist cannot roll. Only thing your wrist can do, biomechanically, the only thing your wrist can do is bend, or they can cock. That's it. So right here, they went through a lot of rolling. Well, the only way they can roll is through the forearms. Both arms have rolled. This right forearm, you can see in that last video I made, that right forearm's pointing up at the sky. That right forearm should be pointing down at the ground. So his forearm's pointing up at the sky. Well, that means that club is rolled. That club has got no chance. Now, you have a chance on the downswing. You got to still get the forearm. You still have to get the forearm back down on plane, which doesn't happen. So when you see this, you'll see what I'm saying, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So when we go back, it goes back, forearms rolled all the way up. He's got a nice pause. I love that. That'll help him. That'll help you once you get it. But from here, now the forearm's pointed. You can see the forearm is pointing out to the sky here. That's going to be vertical. The club's going to be wide open, and it's going to be coming across your shoulder now. It wasn't at first, but now it's going to, because it's in a weak position. And the brain knows all this. I mean, so it's like now it's just automatic. It's just going to happen. And off the toe and through there and so forth. A lot of tension, trying to fight the face off and things like that. All those things go away once the right wrist and the once the right wrist and the right arm are on the same page and they're moved correctly. All this stuff goes. All the tension goes away. They can't go away though until the right wrist functions correctly and the right arm functions correctly. Once they do, people can relax. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for some questions, and I know there's probably several tonight. One thing before we do that is that I made a video probably 3 weeks ago, and I don't have to make another one until everybody gets that one right. It's like I've always said, you don't have to have 1,000 drills. I've got 1,000,000 drills, but you only have to have one. You know, and if you've got one that works, you don't need 1,000 more. That one video, if you study it and you measure yourself relative to what I'm doing on that video, and you really pay attention and study your videos, you won't have any problems. We know because we've already had players that have already done it. You know, where they're sending them in, they're sending their videos in, and you can just see the changes of what's going on. So that video doesn't need to change until somebody gets so good. Then we say, okay, we need to. If players get so good at that, they're already on our online program. Then maybe we can say, all right, let's change the video and edit it and make it a little bit more advanced as we go along. But it's better than everybody on here right now. I can assure you that. That video, that last video I made is better than anybody that's in this program, period. And I've got a player that's in the last stage of U.S. Open qualifying right now, and it's better than he is as well. And he knows it because that's the video that got him there. The right wrist, right arm, right elbow, the whole thing, the whole right side. When you get that, that video is better than anybody on here. So study that video and understand what I'm talking about with that right wrist. Understand what I'm talking about when I say right arm for rotation. Understand when I say in that video about the forearm needs to be pointing at the inside portion of the ball. Listen to those points that I talk about, and you will succeed. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up for questions.
So Matt, thanks for looking at my video.
Thanks for.
So my main problem is the rolling of the wrist, the rolling of the forearm. That's what's causing it to be weak at the top.
Yes, sir. So I'm going to thank you so much for bringing it up to us. Your thumb, if you look where he's at right here, you're not bad in this area. There's some of this, again, rotation, because both arms, you got to realize you're dealing with both arms. I mean, both arms can be rotating.
Right.
But from here, you've got to feel like your right thumb, this back thumb, turns downward this way. Shuts down, turns that, it's going to have to feel, let me try to get all this junk off here. It's going to have to feel from right here, turning this toe downward. That's what you're going to have to feel as it's going up your right shoulder. If it gets away from your right shoulder, that means, so your club when you get around here, it starts to move away, kind of back behind you. That means that the left arm rotated. And then that toe is going to get wide open. And then when you cock the elbow, this is a lot of stuff, but this is just what it is. When you do all that and cock the elbow, it then gets wide open. So then you don't have any strength to pull from. When you get right past this point right here, you got to feel that toe turn downward this way. Just curl it down. Shut that thing, like shut the face down as much as you can. That'll make a
Okay.
If I only had one thing to give you, it'd be that. Because let me put it on your swing because it'll make more sense. And I really appreciate you sending that video in because it helps everybody if you do that. So when you get here, it's not bad. Like it's not bad, but right there, the left arm. See now this club's that little thing keeps popping up, but this club went around. So now what's going to happen is the elbow is going to start cocking it upward. So there's some problems with that. This arm is rolled. That's why got clubs getting behind that forearm right here. So I'm going to get this out of here, and then we're going to go up, and then I'll show you. Then when you get just about right there, this forearm off plane relative to the ball. This forearm's pointing out here. That means when I see that, that club face is hanging. We want that club face a lot more down. So the way to do that is just turning it down in transition, just turning the club face literally down. So if I go back over, let me try to go back over. So when you're going in this through this area, you're just trying to feel like you're turning this club face down this way.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're going to feel, and that it's not getting. You don't want the shaft. You don't want this part of the club back in this area. You want it more up, and then the toe would be turning down. And with that, you're going to be in good shape. You're going to hit a lot more training ball flight, and then we can start building your downswing a little bit more efficiently. It'll probably just naturally happen.
Okay.
I'm going to go back just a hair, just one more time, because when you get here, you can. The one thing is people can feel their thumbs. They can feel their hands because there's more feeling here. Try to get that thumb. When you get in this ballpark, turn that thing under roll it. We call it under roll. Turn it this way. You're letting it roll that way. Turn that thing down under this way. That right there alone will make a radical difference in ball flight. Just shut the hell out of that thing. And then once we can see the face in your backswing, there's other things we can do to keep that. You'll be able to use the side of the shaft correctly. When you're using the back side of the shaft right now, the energy, and that's why it's got so much kind of floppiness to it, things like that. Once you get the lead side of the shaft loaded, that middle section of the lead side of the shaft, that's the one thing when you're hands on. I mean, we're online, so it is a little trickier, but once you feel that load in the lead middle side of the section of the shaft, you want to use it. It's like because you feel the strength of the shaft, you feel how strong it is. When you're loading the back, so when somebody they roll the right arm or right hand like you're doing, there's nothing there. It's just open air, so there's nothing to use that shaft against. There's no pressure. But once you turn it the correct way, you can load that shaft against gravity, and then you can just hammer it. So, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. So,
Very good. I got something to work on.
yeah. If you can send another video, and when you do, if you can send it in by YouTube, slow motion would be fantastic. If you can't, we'll work with the other. But just I'm going to be looking for basically if I can just see the face. There's more we need to do, but if I can just get you in where I can see the face here, even a little bit more than that, almost a little bit of Dustin Johnson-ish, where I can see the face, and the arm doesn't have as much. You can see that his forearm's pointing more down at the ball here. If you get those two things, see how his forearm's pointing more down this way. Yours was rolled up more and going more this way. If we get that, and then we get the face, that means your arm's in good shape, and it means your wrist is in good shape. And now we can do we can go to work. That's where we can get on and start really getting a ball flight. You won't see the over the top. You won't see the steep as much if we can see the that. So yeah, it looks like Greg said, are you referring to the back arm, back wrist? Yes, the back arm, back wrist. The back arm has 4 functions essentially, really the same thing. When I go over those things, we do this in our biomechanics class that we run once a month in Austin, and it's a 2-hour class. It usually ends up going for about 3 or 4 hours. Your back arm, it has you can either arms are arms, right arm. Your arms can rotate, they can fold and extend the elbow, they have swing direction, which they can swing any way. That's why somebody can swing way over the top or way under flying. And then they have an arc arm. Essentially, the arc arm is kind of like what it's designed to do. So that's a little bit of the same thing as swing direction. So essentially they have three things. I like that fourth one because when somebody understands what that back arm does as an arc arm, then they can really, it seems like it makes sense to them. The right wrist has two functions. It doesn't roll. You can't roll the wrist. You can only roll the forearm. Forearm, if you roll the forearm, the wrist rolls with it. So the wrist can only cock and uncock, flex and extend, however you want to call it in biomechanics, and they can either side bend in both directions, side bend flat, side bend the other way. So that's all it can really do. So the arm has more functions, but they're two separate functions. They're not the same thing. So if you get the arm right, does not mean you're going to get the wrist right. You can have the arm moving exactly like you want and cock the wrist vertically. Or you can have the wrist moving right and have the arm moving off. So you have to understand what they're designed to do. Now the right arm is way more dominant than the left or the back arm, and it can control a lot more of what's going on with the swing than the lead arm. If you do the back arm correctly, that's the one that's swinging furthest away from the target as far as it's pulling the club back. It's not necessarily swinging further away. The lead arm swings further away in general because it's got more extension, but that's only because the right arm is giving it that. So the right arm is way more important than the left arm. That's why you don't want to try to extend the left elbow in the backswing or try to get width with the left arm and all that stuff. If you understand biomechanics and you've been trained correctly, the right wrist and the right arm, they are what creates the extension. Plus, you have to deal with the thoracic mobility, lat mobility. There's other things, right hip mobility. There's things there's other things involved besides all that stuff. But if you just get the back arm and back wrist right, any player, you're going to start to play some really good golf. There's just no doubt about it. If you understand what they're designed to do. The back arm is not designed, either arm's not designed to rotate. You do not want that left arm rotating in your backswing. You do not want your right arm. If you do, you better be a hell of an athlete, and you better be able to have some fast wrist and really good recovery time. And we can't deal with that because most of the athletes we deal with are not very good athletes. So we have to deal with athletes that have to make it simple, really simple. So if you control the right forearm and you get the right wrist bent correctly off the right forearm, then what you're going to do is see swings that look different, but they hit the ball the same way. They hit them like these, they hit it just, really pure. And there's no really, if you're just really below average athlete, can't hardly do anything, you should be able to shoot in the 70s, in my opinion, if you understand what the back arm and the back wrist are designed to do. So, and the backside has some, the right side, so if you're left-handed, it's obviously the opposite, but that whole back side, if you understand what it's designed to do, it doesn't matter how long you swing the club, whether you swing it over your neck like Bubba Watson or you swing like Jason Duffner, really short. You just have to learn what you're capable of. But I can tell you, they all have to do, and I prove this in the class, and hopefully we'll get a video made where we run the whole class so everybody can see this. But I prove everybody has to fall into what we're doing. They don't have to do it in our backswing. They don't have to do it. But out of transition, there's not anybody that can't fall into what we're trying to do, what we're saying with the right arm, the right wrist, and the right side. There's nobody. Everybody has to fall into those mechanics at some point in the downswing after transition. There's just no way. You can't have the club, the left arm rolled or the right arm rolled and the club face whatever, and there's just certain things you can't do, and I'd have to show that by demonstration, not by verbiage, because it wouldn't work. But I'm just telling you, everybody falls in. Everybody has to do what we're saying at some point in the swing. It's just a matter of when you do it. You can even do it down by the baseline, so you can even do it. You can even do it down in this area. There's some players that wait that long that they do it, but you're playing with fire. The longer you wait to do it, the more that you're relying on athletic ability and hand-eye timing and so forth. So to do it, but and most people just don't. They usually just slam the club back whatever direction they took it back on. They slam it back the other direction. So if they take it outside, they swing across it. If they swing it inside, they swing out. They usually just swing on the same direction. They don't have any recovery or adjustability or anything like that. Whereas pros and high-level amateurs, they have a change of direction where they adjust relative to the plane, and it's not that they know physically or in their mind where they're going, but they know from a ball flight standpoint that they have to move a certain way to make that ball go where they want it. And they fall under the laws of what we talk about, with the right arm, the back wrist. So, and it just makes it so much more simple. I mean, when we do our biomechanics class, we'll do a class. We did one this week. We did one last week as well, and it was just really, we got out there, we moved for over an hour. We had a guy that's playing in U.S. Open. He's got a chance to play in the U.S. Open. He's got through the first stage. He's won 3 times on the tour. We got a guy that's a long drive champion. He's on our online program. They sit out there, and then we have players that are in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, everything in between, and I made every single one of them do the exact same thing. How to use the right arm going away from the ball, and then how to bend their how we call it converting. So when you convert it, so you move your right arm away from the ball, and then you convert it. And we just did right arm only. There's no club, no left arm, no nothing. So swing the right arm away, bend the right wrist relative to the right arm correctly, and then through. And so we did that for an hour, just an hour of reps. So you can only imagine how many reps that is for all these players. I don't have any idea. We never counted. But it was efficient. It was like, and I always tell them, it's like, I don't care if you get 5 reps, if you get 500 reps. It's not a speed contest, who gets the most reps. It's the efficiency. So when you watch a tour player do the reps, they're taking their time, and they're going slower. When you're watching the kids do it, or some of the people that are in the 80s and 90s, they're just trying to make a race out of it, like sprint. They're just trying to get, how many reps can I get in? I want to impress the coach by just getting a lot real fast. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want. I just want efficiency. So when you do it right, if you get 1 rep right, that's good. If you do 100 reps and they're all wrong, which most people do when they're going fast, that doesn't do anything for me, and it won't do anything for the player. So it's really just about efficiency. So we're going to try to get a video on that class, one of the classes where we just do that over and over, and you'll see everybody looks the same when they train, but when they swing, they all look different. They all have their things, but they're still working within those. You'll see the fundamentals of doing this over and over and over, that it makes everybody just so much more efficient. And so anyway, that's probably all I've got on that. But the reason why I harp on it is because if you get the back arm and the back wrist and you truly understand it, you got a massive advantage on yourself. The before person and the after person. The after person, if you understand, you will be a much, much, much better player than the one before. And then you deal with the body. We spend an hour on the body with Tai Chi, because the body is designed to sync circle, and then it's designed to shift and keep depth. But that is all. There's nothing that part is not near as important as understanding the shaft, because the shaft hits the ball, not your body. So if your shaft is not correct and you're not using and your hands hold it and your arms are connected to your hands, so you better understand what you're designed to do with those 2 things. So wrist and arms are the most important things that you can develop if you're not already a great player. So, do we have any questions on anything right now? So some of the guys were wanting to know about Scott, that I sent out an email, I think it was this past week, about Scott getting into the final stage of the sectional qualifier of the U.S. Open. So if he gets in now, he's in. Scott last year made no cuts on the tour, really struggled. He moved to Austin essentially to train with us. He's won now 3 times. He's got a 2nd, 5th, and a 6th, and he just barely missed the Valero Open. Got through the Monday qualifier and got into the next qualifier and barely missed out on that. Played really well in the front 9. Just kind of got a little nervous probably in the back, and now he's in through the U.S. Open. He had to win in a 6-way playoff, and he came out and just dunked it right off the bat. With that being said, Scott went through what we call the process. Scott came to me as a player that I deal with a lot. And I may be riding my own chain here a little bit, and you just have to bear with me if I am and you feel that way. But one thing that I've always been able to do is help people that have been great players before get it back. And that sounds really easy, but it's probably the hardest thing to do, because when they do it, they go searching for everybody. So when I worked with Tom Kite, Tom hadn't won in like 3 years, blah, 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 blah. His back's messed up. His feet are messed up. We worked. The next thing you know, he won twice in the same year. Hillary Lumpke came to me. There were some female issues that happened, but we worked 1 week. She hadn't been competitive, and probably she won the U.S. Open way back. She hadn't been competitive at all. We worked 1 week, spent 1 week working on biomechanics. She goes out and has a chance to win on the tour, and then she had some serious female issues that I can't go into I can't go into any more detail than that. And she played, and she ended up still in the top 10. But she had a chance to win that event, and then she hasn't played since, and because of those issues. Wes Short came to me, same thing, broken horse, just couldn't play. He was bed rested for over 2 months when we went to do a lesson. He said, I want you to work with one of my friends. I went to work with one of his friends that played on the tour. He had a great week. He said, I want to work with you. And we went to work the next day, and he said, I'm not going to be able to. I can't get out of bed. My neck is just done. And so so we got Wes back up. Now, if you look at Wes's stats, he wins $1 million a year on the tour. Natalie Tucker played on the LPGA tour when she was playing at Memphis. We worked together. She was the shortest hitter on the tour. She ended up winning a Remax Long Driving Championship. One thing I will give myself credit for, and I can, because I've got the record to do it, is I can rejuvenate people, and I can get them back, and I can make them better than what they've ever been. I don't care how good they are, and I don't care where they're at. But most people, if they're having success, don't call to change instructors. It's when they're not having success. That was probably the only mistake Tiger Woods ever made, was when he was with Butch Harmon, was probably leaving that environment, because there was no need to. He'd won 4 majors with him. Then he went to switch with Hank Haney. It was a complete and utter mess for a long time. And that guy's going to figure out how to win no matter what. But what I will say is you want to stay with the one that's getting you there, getting it done. If you're having success, don't change. But then there's times where people, when they're doing this, they like Scott, when he came in, they'd been to all these instructors, and everybody starts guessing and hoping that this works, that works, this works, that works, and we don't guess. When they come in, I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And what we did with Scott, and I'll tell you the basics of what we did, all I did is make him play golf. I made him play golf. He came out there, the first time he came out there, and he said, hey, Matt, I used to be able to play. I grew up playing golf with Jordan Spieth, and then all of a sudden I got with all these instructors, and I'm lost in the jungle. He has this beautiful golf swing that was not efficient at all. And so I go out there, I give him a lesson. I said, hey, this is what I want you to do. We're going to do this. And I could realize right off the bat, I was like, nope. I mean, even though it was the right information, I was like, nope, not going to work. You're going to have to play. And because I could tell, I mean, like, he was just paralysis of analysis. So I made him play golf. And I can't make him play. He decided to do what I told him to do. And when he did, he started playing golf every single day. And all of a sudden, his game starts coming back. And then I started giving him little techniques. I said, all right, we want to do this. I want to do that. And I'd say, no, you got to go play. And so it's funny, when he comes to me now and takes a lesson, he knows he's not going to be there with me more than probably 15 minutes, 10 minutes. And the reason why is I can't keep him there that long, because if I do, I'm going to break him. He's going to be just like he was, mentally broken. So I give him I feed him a little bit, that 1% a day we talk about, and I say, look, go play, go compete, go do this. And that's why it's been very, very, very successful. And it's very similar to what I've done with a lot of the other players, because it's not always techniques. Now, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like you just need to train, get it right, overtrain for a while, and then, then we can flop and go back the other direction. You got to know where you're at, and you got to feed what you need. But that is one thing that you have to be really mindful of, is to make sure you're playing a lot of golf and competing, because that's the fun part. You don't want to just train. So anyway, with that being said, I said I would talk a little bit about what got us. I mean, it's as simple as that. I could go up and make up a bunch of junk, but I'm not going to. The simplest thing was I made him play golf. He decided that was what he wanted to do. And we chipped away at his technique. And then right before the U.S. Open, I came in here, and this was the first lesson I gave him. The very first day he walked out there, I told him about the right wrist and the right arm. The exact same thing we're talking about right now. And the problem is he was I mean, man, he was doing all kinds of reps, and I realized, oh God, this guy's he's paralysis of analysis. There's no way it's going to work. So he goes out, and the first day was awesome. Then all of a sudden he's starting to trickle and go away from it. And I said, look, just play, forget everything I told you. You just have to get rounds accumulated. And that was the start of the success. And then our last lesson right before the U.S. Open was right back to the very first. You never have to change. If you got the right information and you got it right and you diagnose it right, you don't ever have to change. It's the same thing. So we came back right before the U.S. Open. I gave him the exact same lesson I gave him right before the very first lesson. But the difference is now he can absorb it because he has the playing, and he's got the confidence because he has 3 wins, a second, fifth, and a sixth. And he understands the path that he's on. And I did the exact same lesson that I did with him before. There's no different. And so then all of a sudden, obviously, he qualifies. He hits it the best he ever hit it, and he could have shot 4 or 5 shots better if he'd have putted better, he said, which we have to work on those things as well. But that's all we did. And so there's a time where you have to train like crazy, and then there's a time where you got to go. You got to give it the F it mode, and that sounds bad, but you just got to go F it, go figure it out. Go figure it out on the golf course. If you're going to train, you're training your tail off, and it's not there. Well, like as Alan Watts says, it may be just not there. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Go play and get it out of your system, and just go let it go and play with what you got, and then come back and give it another whirl. Keep training again, and then you'll chip away at that mountain. And when they start. But the one thing you can never do is be a trainer. If you're trying to be a trainer, that's what you're going to be. If you want to be a gamer, you got to play golf. You have to play, and you have to play a lot, and you have to have money on the line, and you have to play in competitions. And it should be what most people on here, or everybody here, wants to do, because it's about playing golf, not hitting range balls and working on swing. But there's a time where you have to know where I'm going to go nuts about. I'm going to go obsess on my technique for a while, and then I'm going to switch gears, and I'm going to switch and just go play. And that can be tricky for some people, because when you get in training mode, you won't play as well, and then when you get in game mode, you probably won't swing as well. It's a weird thing, and then all of a sudden they start marrying up together, and the next thing you know, you're playing. You're not thinking about it. You're not having to train, and you're just playing, and it's all there. And that's the process that a boxer goes through, it's a process of a basketball player goes through, it's a process of anybody that's an athlete goes through. There's a time where you're training, and then there's a time where you're playing, but at the end of the day, you better be playing more than you train. Do we have any other questions or anything? So when you study your video, just make sure that when you look at it, that you exaggerate more. Exaggeration is a beautiful thing in training. So most people just swing back and they think, well, it's not there. Well, no, he didn't do anything different. And so here's one common thing, and I'll wrap it up on this. We had our instructor training, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. The guy came in from Utah that's going to be running we're going to have a facility there at Salt Lake, and he says, we're working with him on his swing, and he's a very good player, a decent player, and going to be a good coach and everything. But he comes in and he was like, and the first thing we did, we changed some of the things he was doing, and it was like, I told him, I said, when you're here throughout the week, he was here for 5 days, and he got to watch a lot of different people come in and out from every single level, which was awesome. And with that, everybody said the same thing. He said, he goes, oh, that feels weird. And I said, you're going to hear that all week. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you're going to hear weird. Because if it feels normal, what'd you change? I can assure you, if your swing feels normal, you ain't changed nothing. I don't care who you are. If you're Tiger Woods to Davis Love to Donnie to Vipple to Teddy to me or anybody else, West Short, you haven't changed nothing. If your swing doesn't feel, when you make a change and you're trying to improve it, it better feel weird because now hopefully it's weird in a good way because it can be weird, but it better not be the same because it's the same. That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity, and it is insanity. So you want to feel weird. When you do what we're telling you to do with your right arm and your right wrist, 99.9% of people better feel wacky weird, and they don't exaggerate enough. If you study video enough of yourself, not anybody else, but yourself, you study your own video. That's the only person in this world that matters, your own video. When you study it, you will realize how much it takes to exaggerate whatever movement it is. I don't care if it's a grip. I don't care if it's what we're talking about with today or tomorrow or whatever. When you make a change, it is not, you could take, and we've got this inside joke at the golf academy with instructors. It's like, I'll bet $1 million tomorrow when you change, even when you put your hands on them at the academy, you work with them for an hour, 30 minutes or 3 hours or whatever, you can bet $1 million the next day their pattern will be back to where it was. And we tell them that. And the reason why we tell them that is so that they know. It's not a joke like we're making fun of them. It's to let them know, like, hey, if you, there's $1 million bet that you're going to lose if you come out here and do what you do naturally. That's all it is. Because I can guarantee you, if you're swinging naturally and you're expecting this to work, you've got lost your mind. There is no chance it's going to happen. There is no chance. When you change a movement pattern, that is the most difficult thing you can do in this game, period. Good or bad, whatever movement you're making. To actually see it change is pretty amazing. It's like a miracle. So most people think that they hear it and they're just like, oh, I'm just going to try that. I'm going to try this. And they try it 3 times and they don't video. And then when they do video, all of a sudden, there's no difference. I mean, you have to really make a change in movement pattern, you better video a lot. And not other people, but you got to video yourself, because you'll be completely shocked at how much it doesn't change more than how much it does change. Once you start seeing change, then it gives you confidence, and then it gives you like, okay, the feel's not relative. Feel doesn't mean nothing. The weirdness, who cares? It doesn't matter at that point. The weirdness is gone. I mean, it feels way outside or way inside or way underrolled or whatever it is, but who cares? It's doing what I'm trying to make it look like it needs to do. And so that's why we say, like, the very first video on that private video, we talk about it. Not private, it's public now. I mean, we just got it out there on YouTube. If you're not using your iPad every single day when when you're in training, you better use it, because it's not going to look different. It'll look like the same pattern. If it looks the same, change it. Exaggerate it until you have to exaggerate to craziness to get it to where it changes. And it'll have to feel insanely different for it to just move a little bit. I know this because I've done it. I've done it this long. I've been using video for 24 years, and I was one of the first one in that ball game. And I can assure you that I understand how hard it is to change a swing on video. Not change somebody's game playing where they look the same, they're psychologically, placebo effect is kicking in and stuff like that. I'm talking about changing a movement pattern. When you see a movement pattern really change, then that's pretty amazing. And that's what we're trying to get people to do online, is change movement patterns, because they're so messed up. But it ain't ever going to happen if people don't have the exaggeration that they need. And it's way more, if you feel like you're doing it a little bit, exaggerate it by 100%, literally 100, not 10%, 100%. Just do, I don't care what move you're working on, make it insanely different and video it and then look. And then you'll know, like, oh, well, it moved an inch, you know. Then you can start to go, oh, well, I got to do more than that even. So anyway, that's I'll wrap it up on that, but that will help a lot of people on here. It's not about, you have to study your videos. You have to not let it look the same. So if it's not looking the same, you have to exaggerate the pattern to insane extremes just to make it move somewhat in the ballpark. So I hope that helps everybody. And we'll probably be, well, I think we did 3 this month, so we'll probably be the second week of June before we get to the next webinar. I'll be traveling, and I look forward to talking to everybody at that one. But just refer back to that last video that I made, the private video that just for the webinar program people, about the right arm and the right elbow. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. Everybody have a great week, great weekend, and be safe, and I'll talk to you in a
Thanks, Matt.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here.